Today we are making October's flower, the Cosmos. Hi, and welcome back to my craft room. My name is Kelsey. I also call myself Dinosaur Mama, and today we are making the October flower. I am getting it in early this month, which is unusual for me, but this is the 11th flower of the year for me. I did 2 back in May, but in this series I've done almost every single flower, and I'm so happy to be bringing them to you. So this month we are doing the Cosmos, and for this flower, you can find the free SVG download over on my blog. It will be linked down below. I have all of the flowers linked below for you to find. And again, like last month, I'm gonna skip doing the Cricut Design Space and Silhouette Studio setup because this flower is literally a upload and cut kind of flower. You can resize this. Cosmos flowers are going to be anywhere from 3 to 6 inches. I made 2 different sizes here. So if you're going to resize anything, make sure you resize the whole file. That's the only thing. And you can find all of the materials and tools linked down below, as well as you will find them linked in the blog post. And with that being said, we can get started. So the first thing that we're doing is actually coloring part of our center of the flower. And I'm just using a brown Crayola marker here. It's nothing fancy. And I'm gonna go over not all of the tall ones, but just some of them to create a little bit of color around the edge. So there are 2 different sizes when it comes to the center, and you'll very easily be able to tell which one's which. You are only coloring the tall ones. And you see, I'm not doing every single one. I'm kind of creating a little bit of space, and I'm doing like a couple bunch together, and then I'm moving, and then a couple bunch together, and then one single one. And so you could do whatever you want here with that, but this is just to make them look a little bit more realistic. Also, it's very helpful to do this while they're still on the mat, and then that way if there's any bleeding, it just kind of goes onto the paper rather than onto your table or anything like that. Now we can remove them from the mat. Our next step is to attach them. So you want the 2 shorter ones next to each other and then the long one on the end. And we're gonna roll from short into long, and you want the brown to be facing the inside towards the center. So I am just going to start attaching these with a little bit of craft glue, and then I will start the rolling. And for my rolling, I am just going to use a pair of tweezers. You can also use like a quilling tool, and I'm just rolling in towards the center and trying to keep that bottom flat part as flat as possible. So it's pretty easy to do. You can just do it with your fingers once you get it going. It definitely is easier to start with a pair of tweezers or that quilling tool and roll up towards the center. And once you're at the end, you can go ahead and grab some craft glue again and just glue this shut onto itself. And again, remember, you should have the brown part of the center that we colored. That should be facing in towards the center. That way when we fold it out, you'll be able to see it. And I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening with my camera zooming in and out and like focusing and unfocusing. I'm gonna have to figure that out. But here it is after I have flapped it out, so you can see that brown just towards the edge. Now for shaping, I'm actually using a ball tool today to add in some detail to the petals. And so I am going to give it a little bit of shape, but also add in almost like a score line to it. I really like the way that these turned out with this technique. And so it curved it just a little bit, but it also gave it, I don't know, a little bit more of like a crepe paper kind of look. So I really liked the way that it turned out. And for this white paper, it was actually textured. So I ended up flipping it over to the side that was not textured to use it. So you see, I'm just drawing lines right up to the tip of these petals from the center. And I'm going to do this for all 3 layers. All right, and our next step is just to glue these petals together. And so I'm going to grab my hot glue gun. I prefer to use hot glue usually when I'm assembling this part, at least, of the flowers. And I'm just going to make these so that they are slightly off and there are no big holes in between petals. And so you'll do that with all 3 layers. You're gonna align the center, and then it should be like a perfect match where there's no big gaps. So 9 petals in total. And again, you can resize these any way you want. And that is your petal layering here. You see there's no gaps. It fits really nicely. And now what we can do is grab that center that we made and glue that down as well. And I like to use hot glue here for this too. I just feel like it adheres better. And then the way there's no uncoiling. I don't think that would happen anyway, but you know what I mean. So if you want to add a stem, I'm going to show that as well. This flower is really, really pretty when it's stemmed, and I'm learning new techniques when it comes to adding leaves and things like that. So I'm excited to show you that. And so here is our cosmos without the stem, but let's go ahead and add that on. So the first thing I'm doing is just shaping my calyx a little bit with my fingers. I'm just giving those leaves, I guess you can call them, or petals, whatever you want to call them, a little bit of a curve, and I'm going to have that face inward towards the flower. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my tweezers again and poke a hole right into the center of the calyx. I didn't add a hole for you because I don't know what kind of floral wire you want to use. I am using something close to an 18 gauge, so it is a little bit thicker. And I am going to create a little loop right at the end of my floral wire, as small as I can. I use my tweezers to kind of help manipulate it. And then I'm going to fold it down to create almost like there's like a extra little lip, and then it's a bend. And we are going to attach this into our calyx. That way it's nice and secured into our flower, and so we don't have to worry about it like falling out. So there's the little loop. I did my best to show it here. And I'm going to slide my calyx right onto the other end, and then I'm going to glue that little loop down to the calyx. And it shouldn't be big where it hangs over. It should fit with inside the calyx, so keep that in mind when you're sizing it. Obviously, if you make smaller flowers, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but if you make a decent sized flower like this, which is just about 3 inches, you're going to have plenty of space. Now I'm going to grab my hot glue gun again, and I am going to add on my flower that we already assembled. And I'm just going to stick that right onto the calyx. Just be careful not to burn yourself with the hot glue when you're doing this. So I just centered it right onto the back, and that is our calyx. It looks really nice. I'm very happy with how that turned out. So let's add on our leaves. So I am using some floral tape. I don't love floral tape. I have mentioned this before. It just gets sticky. I don't love it, but that's okay. And I'm just going to fold it over on itself and start wrapping it pretty tightly around the actual floral wire, and then start working my way down the stem. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add on my paper leaves as I start rolling down so that the end of it gets kind of wrapped into the floral wire. You can bend the end so that it wraps a little bit around the floral wire, or you could even glue it to the floral wire just to give it a little more shape towards the bottom so that's nice and flat against the wire. But I just went ahead and started wrapping. I also did some before in the other flower where I attached floral wire first to the leaf, but it really didn't make much of a difference here. So I'm just wrapping it around, and I'm going to do that for all 4 leaves. And I kind of like off-place them down the flowers so that they weren't like all next to each other bunched up. So you see I wrapped a few times, and now I'm going to add in my next leaf, and then I'm going to wrap a few times too. And I'm also going on the other side of the wire. So it's a little bit of a process. You just want to add a little bit of spacing here, and you also want to add some depth to it as well. So just keep wrapping with your fingers and wrap nice and tight. Floral tape does get sticky, so just keep that in mind. And I'm just going to wrap all the way down and add in my other 2 leaves. I really like this flower. I think it's one of my favorite flowers that I've made all year, and so I hope you enjoyed making it. I'd like to be adding more detail like this to my flowers as I go along. So I'm always learning when I'm creating these. I hope you really enjoyed this one. Thank you for joining me as we made our Cosmos flowers. I hope you enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It helps me so much. Subscribe to my channel for new crafty videos every week, and share this with one of your friends who needs a new paper flower to make this month. I will see you soon in my craft room, and stay crafty.